If you're watching this right now, don't touch your radio tonight. Don't even tune the dial. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another campfire story. It's a warning, and it begins with one man's final broadcast. Our first story is the last broadcast. Henry was a small-town radio host, the kind of man who lived for the night shift. Every evening, when the streets emptied and the lights went dark, Henry's voice filled the silence. Confessions at midnight, he called it. Listeners phoned in, sharing secrets, regrets, or simply rambling to a stranger. Henry liked to think of himself as a friend to the lonely. But on one stormy night, as the clock struck 12, the station phone rang. He pressed the button with his usual cheer. 96.3 FM. What's on your mind tonight? A pause. Then, a whisper. You shouldn't have picked up, Henry. Henry froze. His name. He hadn't introduced himself. Static buzzed on the line, followed by the faintest sound of breathing. Then a laugh. Slow, deliberate. I can see you. Henry's heart skipped. He swiveled toward the dark studio window. The storm made the glass reflect his own face. Pale and nervous. Nobody was outside. Nobody should have been able to see him. Nice tie, Henry. Red suits you? Henry's tie was hidden beneath the desk. His hands trembled. He forced a chuckle. All right, pal, funny joke. Where are you calling from? The voice ignored him. It began describing his desk. The mug with half-dried coffee. The notepad with doodles. Even the small burn mark on the corner of the wood. Henry's throat tightened. How do you know that? He whispered. The caller chuckled again. You told me, Henry. You tell me everything. Every night. And tonight, it ends. For 7 minutes, the caller recited Henry's life, his childhood fears, the name of his late wife, even the way he still kept her photograph hidden in a drawer. The voice was inside his mind, his memories. Then came the final words. When the static begins, so will the end. The line went dead. The studio lights flickered. The broadcast cut to static. The next morning, 96.3 FM was silent. No music, no voice. Just the endless hiss of static. Henry was never seen again. To this day, some say if you tune into 96.3 FM exactly at midnight, you'll hear Henry's trembling voice. Not a confession, not a show, just his final broadcast, looping forever. Second story, the Forgotten Village. There's a place in the mountains that doesn't exist on any map. A village no GPS can find. A place you'll only hear about in whispers because the few who claimed to have seen it swore they'd never go back. 3 hikers, friends since college, set out on a trail deep in the countryside. The air was crisp, the forest quiet. For hours they walked. But as the path narrowed and the sun dipped low, they stumbled onto something impossible. A cluster of wooden houses tucked into a clearing. Lanterns glowed in the windows. Smoke curled from chimneys. Children darted between the huts. Women carried baskets. Old men sat on doorsteps, staring. The hikers exchanged glances. They hadn't passed any roads, no signs of life. Yet here it was a village that shouldn't exist. They approached cautiously. The villagers noticed. But no one spoke. Not a hello, not a whisper. Their eyes followed silently. An elderly woman beckoned them into her house. She offered warm food, blankets, and a place to rest. The hikers, though unsettled, were exhausted. They accepted, but the silence pressed on them. Not a single bark of a dog, not a baby's cry, not even the wind seemed to move through the houses. At midnight, one hiker awoke. He glanced through the window and froze. Every villager was outside, standing in a circle around the house. Dozens of faces, pale, hollow-eyed, staring directly at the window. Their expressions blank. He shook his friends awake. Panic spread. They bolted out the back door, sprinting into the trees. Behind them, the villagers did not chase. They simply watched. The forest seemed endless. The trees closed in, paths twisting. When dawn broke, the three stumbled out onto a familiar road. They collapsed in relief. Days later, they returned with authorities. But when they reached the clearing, the village was gone. No houses, no lanterns, only forest. Some say, if you wander far enough into those mountains, you'll find the village again. But be careful, because the moment you notice the silence, the moment you hear nothing at all, it means the villagers are already watching you. The title of our last story is The Mirror That Shows Your Death. Would you dare look into a mirror that doesn't reflect your face, but your final moments? One college student did, and she didn't survive the night. Emily was a skeptic. Ghost stories, curses, rituals, she laughed them off. Her roommate, however, believed in one legend passed around campus: the cursed mirror in the old dormitory basement. The story said, if you stood in front of it at 3 a.m. with the lights off, the mirror wouldn't copy your reflection. Instead, it would show the moment of your death. Emily mocked the tale. If it's real, then I'll prove it. That night, she crept into the basement. Dust choked the air. The mirror stood tall against the wall, its glass fogged with age. At 2:59, she waited. At 3 o'clock, the clock struck. The air grew heavy. Emily looked into the mirror. At first, nothing, just her tired face staring back. Then, slowly, her reflection's lips curled into a smile. Emily froze. She wasn't smiling. The reflection raised a hand, pointing at her neck. Behind it, in the glass, a shadow appeared tall, faceless, holding something long and sharp. Emily spun around. The basement was empty. But when she turned back, the reflection was gone. The mirror showed only the empty room. She stumbled back, heart racing, whispering to herself that it wasn't real, that it couldn't be. The next morning, her roommate found the mirror shattered. The cracks spread outward, as if from the inside. Emily was nowhere to be found. Her belongings remained, her bed untouched. To this day, the mirror is said to still exist, hidden in storage somewhere on campus. And they say, if you ever see your reflection smile when you're not, don't look away, because something else is already standing behind you. 3 stories, 3 warnings, a broadcast that never ended, a village that shouldn't exist, and a mirror that should never be found. Tell yourself they're just stories if you want to. But tonight, when the world grows quiet, when the static hums, when the silence presses in, remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't explain.